Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to my channel. This is Mike. I'd like to do something a little bit different tonight and talk about three films that I would like to see have a good remastered Blu-ray and DVD release. Okay, these are films that, as of yet, have not been picked up by any company, even Warner Archive or Kino Lorber, any of these wonderful folks who dig up obscure films and bring them into everybody's living room, right? These are films that, as far as I can find, they are only available in the DVD-R format by various online sellers, and which means that they are basically copies of copies. They're copied from VHS releases, copied from television sometimes. And one of these one of these movies I'm going to show you used to be out on VHS. I know that for sure because I actually owned a copy. The other two I'm not so sure. But I'd like to just show these to you and talk about them a little bit. Okay? Now what I have here is an empty DVD case with nothing on it. So why am I showing you this? Because inside I have, this is probably not going to help you. Can you see anything on that DVD-R? Probably not. But this is a film from 1944, Universal Pictures. It's called Christmas Holiday. Christmas Holiday. If you can see that, you might be able to see the name of the star, Deanna Durbin. The film starred Deanna Durbin, Gene Kelly, and Gail Sondergaard in a story that was written by W. Somerset Maugham. Now, I've never read the story. I don't know if it's a novel or just a short story, but I would like very much to read it sometime. By the title of Christmas Holiday, and considering the two stars, two musical stars of the 1940s, Deanna Durbin, Gene Kelly, you would think that you're getting a nice holiday type musical, but it's not. It's a very serious film noir, actually, and with a lot of very dark family dysfunctions and dark happenings. And it's just a very dramatic film. Now, Deanna Durbin, for those of you who don't really know her as any kind of a household name, she was one of the biggest stars in Hollywood beginning in 1936. When she was 15 years old, she made a film at Universal called Three Smart Girls, and she became a star overnight. She had this beautiful operatic voice that was just, she sounded better than someone who was 35 years old. Just a beautiful, beautiful, pristine voice. And she made all kinds of films from 1936 up until 1948. She was one of Universal's top stars, one of the biggest moneymakers in Hollywood. And then she walked away. Her contract was over and she didn't want to do it anymore. She walked away and never looked back. But during all those years, Deanna Durbin was growing up from a really cute teenage girl to a beautiful young woman. And she reached a point in the 1940s where she wanted to do something a little more serious, and instead of being, as she called herself, quote unquote, Little Miss Fix-It, who bursts into song and then everything's okay, and then the end flashes on the screen. That's what a lot of her films were like, even though they were big money makers and they were very popular. But she wanted to do something more dramatic. So the studio gave her this story, and she never did a dramatic film like that again for the rest of her career. But still, she did a good job. It's a very good film. It has its flaws, but I like it more every time that I see it. And Gene Kelly, of course, he had made his film debut in 1942 in the musical, a very serious musical called For Me and My Gal with Judy Garland and George Murphy. And it wasn't really a musical comedy. It was a serious musical. And he made a big impression. He was in CoverGirl with Rita Hayworth over at Columbia. And so he was loaned out to Universal to do this. It's a very dramatic role where he didn't sing a lick. And he's quite good. Gail Sondergaard plays his mother. And it's just a very dark story. They had to change a lot of the themes of Mom's story, which had to do with hints of homosexuality. And I'm just getting this because of what I read about the story. As I said, I haven't read it. And also the hints of an incestuous relationship between the mother and the son. Gail Sondergaard is great in this movie. And anyway, it's very much worth seeing. I got this copy from, I think it was one of my favorite online sellers. It's Zeus DVDs. That's Zeus as in the Greek god, Zeus. and I'll put a link below. They sell a lot of really obscure stuff, and this DVD-R that I have is quite watchable. So yeah, I guess that's all I want to say. Deanna Durbin does sing two songs. A song that was written for her in this film called "Spring Will Be a Little Late This Year," and also an Irving Berlin tune called no, Always, Always, very beautiful. But she plays a nightclub singer in what appears to be possibly a brothel, or it may just be a low-down dive that has a lot of women sitting around with men coming up to them, and it shows people going upstairs to the second floor. It's kind of ambiguous in a way. It's supposed to give you the idea that this may be a brothel, and that sweet little Deanna Durbin is playing a prostitute, but they're not really hitting you over the head with that. It's just an idea. I don't really know how that was in this story, but I think it was supposed to be a brothel. Anyway, it's enough said. Christmas Holiday, highly recommended. Next up is a film from 1949 made at Warner Brothers, and this is called, hope you can see this, Beyond the Forest. This is a Bette Davis film. This is the last film Bette Davis made at Warner Brothers. Also classified as a film noir, by the way, and directed by King Vidor, co-starring Joseph Cotten, Ruth Roman. Who else was in it? That's about all. Very, very good movie. Well, good, not so good. It's notorious for being a film that Bette Davis hated so much that she called up Jack Warner when they had something like another day's shooting to finish, and she said, if you want this film finished, I want you to let me out of my contract. And he said, fine, I've had enough. So that was the end of her almost 18 years at Warner Brothers. And it was not a terribly big success. Bette Davis begged Jack Warner not to make her play this part of Rosa Maline, a very evil woman in a small town married to nice, easygoing doctor Joseph Cotten, who just worshipped her. And all she wants to do is get away from this small town, get away from her husband, and go to Chicago. Get on the train and go to Chicago and live some kind of a high life. And she begged Jack Warner not to make her play it because she knew she was too old for this part. She was afraid she would look ridiculous. And in a way, she did in many of the scenes. But quite frankly, I can't imagine any actress, any young, beautiful actress playing this part and making it convincing, because some of the situations and the lines are quite ridiculous. But this is the one where Betty gives that famous line that later became famous for her, where she says, "What a dump," right? And that's all she does. She walks into a room and looks around and says, "What a dump." It's no more dramatic than that. But later on, it became something that people used to imitate her with, and then she began imitating the imitators. But Beyond the Forest is an interesting movie. It should be appreciated, I think, and seen by people. I don't know why Warner Archive hasn't put this out yet. Maybe they're ashamed of it or something. But I think it should be appreciated because it's a part of Bette Davis's filmography, and a very important part, because it ended her time at Warner Brothers, which is a very prolific and award-winning period of her career. And really fascinating to watch. It does have its good moments. She does have her very, very good moments in the film. So, Beyond the Forest. And finally, from 1957, one of my favorite teen angst movies, juvenile delinquents, troubled teenagers, and all that sort of thing. This is DINO from Allied Artists, and it stars Sal Mineo as well. He had started his reputation as the Switchblade Kid 2 years before, when he was in Rebel Without a Cause, and then he played in Crime in the Streets, and then he made this film, and kind of sealed his fate as being the quintessential troubled teenage urban kid who was always coming out with the switchblade. And but it's a very good film. He plays Dino Manetta, a kid who is 17 years old and just getting out of prison at the beginning of the film. He was put in prison at the age of 13 because he took part in a murder. There was a bunch of guys, all of whom were older than he was, and they were breaking into a place, and they ended up killing the night watchman. And all of them took a swing at this old man, and he did the same thing. and so he had to go. He went to a reform school, and now he's coming back to the old neighborhood, to his very dysfunctional family, and filled with hate and anger and not being able to talk to anybody. And he has to meet every day with Brian Keith, who is the local social worker who was supposed to help Dino adjust and become a good citizen. And it's very, very well done. Sal Mineo was a great actor. A lot of people don't realize that, how talented he was. He had a good run during the 1950s. He was nominated twice for Academy Awards, Best Supporting Actor for Rebel Without a Cause, and then for I think he was for Rebel Without a Cause. I'm pretty sure he was. Then he was nominated for the film Exodus in 1960. After that, his film career started to decline. He started to struggle at a very young age. But this is a good film, and I think it should be appreciated by people. This is from thevideobeat.com, which is one of my favorite online sellers. And DINO actually started its life as a TV play the previous year on the Westinghouse Studio One program, which put on a lot of dramatic plays during the 1950s. And Sal Mineo stars in the play as well. Brian Keith is not in this. The social worker is played by Ralph Meeker. Also in the film, there's a beautiful girl who becomes sort of his girlfriend in the film, and played by Susan Kohner, a beautiful actress who, of course, 2 years later would become famous for Imitation of Life. And anyway, has anybody ever seen DINO? This is really one of my favorites. Used to play on TV all the time back in the 60s and 70s, and I've always liked it. So very happy to have this. Very watchable copy. All right, 3 films I think should be on Blu-ray or DVD. I'd be happy. How about 4K? No, I'm not going to go that far. I'm not into the 4K universe as yet, so I'm not going to ask for that. But anyway, thanks for watching, and comments are welcome.